I work at a college as a janitor, even though I feel like I'm smarter than most of the people that go there. Sometimes I see an equation written on a blackboard, like half an equation, and I'll just figure it out.
Is this Good Will Hunting?
Hello everyone and welcome to Scenes. This is number 87 on our reviews of the top 100 IMDb bucket list films to see before you die. Today we've got Good Will Hunting, a film that Matt Damon originally wrote the draft for when he was at Harvard University for a drama class, and it went on to be nominated for 9 Oscars. We're going to talk about the film first spoiler free. We'll then go on to rate it with our system of enjoyment versus technical quality before talking about it with spoilers. So stick around and we'll answer the question, is it good will hunting or bad will hunting? So Dan, good will hunting or bad will hunting, or it could be great will hunting. Have you seen this film before?
I have seen this film before. I've seen this film a dozen or more times before. Spoiler, I love it. This is definitely great will hunting for me personally. It's a film that I think I probably watch once every 18 months. So I kind of know it all off by heart. I watched it again, obviously, just for the sake of this video. Maybe I don't usually write down notes for films. I just kind of watch it and then come on and do it sort of off the cuff. But for this one, because I've seen it so many times, I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to write down what I like and maybe a few things that I don't like about it. But what do you think of it? Have you seen it before anyway?
Yeah, I'm actually the same. I've seen it a bunch of times, and it is something that I think you can go back and watch regularly and continue to enjoy it. And I mean, I find it refreshing because the films that we've reviewed recently on this list, we've talked about fantastic camera work, we've talked about suspense, you don't know what's going to happen, or they've got themes that make your head turn backwards. This is completely different. It's almost quite formulaic, simple in its plot. You kind of know where it's going to go. There's no great surprises. It's not that clever. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic film, and obviously you do as well. But what are some of your favorite bits about it then?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It is quite formulaic to a sense. Having that structure really grounds you in because they are talking about a maths genius, and even the other characters are struggling to keep up with him. So we don't want too much math that no one can understand. So it's quite nice to kind of know where some of the beats are going. But ultimately, the story actually isn't anything about that. It's about mental health. It's about the relationship between I actually, looking at it, for me, what I really got from this new time watching that I really clung to, that I really enjoyed, is something that I've not really thought of before when seeing this film, is its take on masculinity. And in some of our previous reviews, we've sort of said, oh yeah, like it's a little bit toxic here or there. And there is one character that I think we'll talk about more in spoilers. This is definitely more of a spoiler film, I think, for us. That maybe shows some of the negative aspects. But what I loved was the honest way that this is written, that men talk to each other, that, you know, how they get their feelings out, how they feel comfortable getting something off the chest that, you know, can be a little bit of a game, or, you know, it's covered with profanity or metaphors or jokes. And I found it all very honest, very engaging. And it's the story of Will and his therapist, really, and how they come to terms with the good things and the bad things that have happened in their life and how they grow. And that is why you can watch it over and over and over and over and over again, because it's not about what actually happens. It's why is this happening, and all this character development. It just does not get old, but it is a little bit warm and fluffy as well. It's kind of this deep drama wrapped up in almost like an underdog sports film sort of way. And I absolutely love that. And I also I feel like I learn whenever I watch this, some of the things that they talk about. What was it that really drives you to watch this film over again?
I think, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head in the way that it approaches it with the characters, and you feel like you're going on the journey with them of discovering about themselves. And as you say, it's largely around Will, played by Matt Damon, and the therapist. But Robin Williams. But at the same time, there's all of the characters are discover a bit about themselves, and you see the flaws in their characters and some of the challenges they're going through. And yeah, in the spoilers, I'll talk about what I mean by that, particularly with the professor. That you find that everyone's got their own little challenges and something that's holding them back. And I think that's interesting. You don't necessarily pick up on that so much the first time around. But generally, I think the acting's really good. I think Matt Damon. I mean, Robin Williams is brilliant, right? But Matt Damon, I think, is incredible in this because he comes across as this confident, cocky young man, and he plays that part brilliantly. But then he's actually incredibly emotional and at parts, he
vulnerable. He's vulnerable,
really vulnerable, and he flips it and changes it, and I think he does an absolutely fantastic job. And in fact, all the supporting cast of his mates. I know Ben Affleck does a good job in this as a supporting character, but Casey Affleck does a good job.
Phenomenal. I didn't realize how good he was until I watched it again. I was just like, he is playing this benign character so well, and it's just fleshing everything out. It really drives the realism to everything else. I love his little posse, and I love Minnie Driver. I think she is so good in this as well. It's just everything is like nailed on. Excellent.
Yeah, the acting's excellent, but I've got some problems for Minnie Driver's character as a person. I'll talk about in the spoilers because.
Okay then.
I think there's some elements of it that I look back and I just think, oh, it's less believable than I think it used to be. But yeah, I think generally the acting's great. As you say, those four in their posse, I think just every scene's entertaining with them in.
Yeah.
The way they make, you can almost tell that they're friends, that they know each other, even though it is an acting performance. And I think it's fantastic.
You can definitely tell the Afflecks are brothers because it's just so easy for them. It's very, very natural. They're very likable, even though they are a bit rough and they don't do some nice things. They don't do anything horrific.
There's the scene with those two when Casey Affleck character's been upstairs supposedly jerking off in Ben Affleck's mum's house. You can see it's almost as if you think they're going to start laughing during that scene at each other, but you can see that it's almost as if they've had that conversation 10 times in their lifetime.
What I found miraculous was what he did is objectively very creepy. And we spoke in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind about how Elijah Wood's character is very, very creepy. And Nick was like, oh, I don't like this. And I didn't feel like it was creepy when Casey Affleck is, masturbating in someone's parents' bedroom wearing a Little League pitcher's glove. It wasn't, but it just wasn't played that way. It didn't feel that creepy. And also, like, he's young. He's very young in this. He's going to be late teens as the character. There are definitely teenagers that do stupid stuff like that, and I think it's really good, even though it's not necessarily a positive thing. They didn't shy away from the reality of the situation, and that's what I really respect about this. Is just an incredibly real performance in a fantastical situation, because this is total fantasy. The fact that this really, really poor kid is a genius, he's got loads of problems, and he can have the pick of whatever job he wants, and he can do this and he can do that. It's incredibly fantastical, and it's really indulgent, and it gives you all the nice feelings inside. But like I said earlier, that heart of this is an incredibly flawed character. Everyone's incredibly flawed, but what they have is each other, and then through that they can grow. And it's important in life, and it's not, the medal that Skarsgård character has, the professor. It's not these things. It's not the money. It's about who you are and how you act and how you can help each other. And I genuinely, absolutely love that aspect to it.
Do you think that takes anything away from the story and detracts from it at all? That they've chosen to have, such an exaggerated position of this orphan, but happens to be a mathematical genius like the world has never seen almost?
No, two things. I think they even bring up an example in the film. I can't remember his name, but it is of a young Indian lad who's I think, born into poverty, and he is literally, I don't have his name. He's very famous though. As far as extending my disbelief, it's fairly easy, but also it is Hollywood. This is a Hollywood film. It's that sort of dream that kind of gets you through some of it and is the real intrigue. And I think Will's potential is what gets you through and into the juicier scenes. And then those sort of come the blindside you. You don't really expect them to be so heavy and so meaningful, and that's what you end up enjoying. I really, really enjoy that. It could be completely into place with something else. And I was thinking, did it have to be Matt? It could have been anything. He even goes in himself to a metaphor about playing the piano. So he could have been a musician. He could have, it just does not matter. It's not a focus really in the film at all. Like, it plays next to no bearing. How did you feel about the real deep dive into psychology in this film? It's very, very psychological, both in terms of Will's interactions with everyone, but also how his treatment in his younger life. Don't want to go too much into it. Like you say, he's an orphan. That's not hidden. How he has issues. Was that something that you thought they did well?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, when they're talking about they're exploring the reasons behind his motivations for how he acts and how he perceives himself and how he wants to see his future and why he's doing some things. I think they do a reasonably good job at explaining this kind of psychology behind that. There is the scene when the professor's arguing with Robin Williams, and he kind of, through that argument, explains what his ideas of Matt Damon's behavior is, and it does well. And I think I would say that they choose to explain that well, and it's a conscious thing that's done in a good way. That's completely different to, like, when you're talking about the mathematics and the theorems that he's solving. They've chosen to actually do no explanation of those whatsoever. You're just led to believe he's a mathematical genius and he solves these things on the board, but you have no concept of what they are. And I think that's a good choice as well, to not even attempt to try and explain any of that stuff and focus on what the film's about, and make sure you as the viewer understand why they're coming to, why Robin Williams is treating him in a certain way, what his motivations are, and kind of the reveal of both their characters and both the way they're now behaving in their lives.
Yeah. Like all films, there'll be some negatives. Do you, again, without spoilers, have any?
It's difficult to say that they're massive negatives. So, as I say, the story in itself is quite simple. You know what's going to come, but as you say, the enjoyment is the scenes themselves, not necessarily having any surprise or payoff at the end of where you think it's going. I do think there's a few strange things with, like, the character development, which I'll talk about in the spoilers, which you're limited by how much you can do in a film, and you want to move it along. But there's a couple I'm keen on here. And then the others, they're not really negatives because they don't need to be. This isn't what the focus of the film is. But there's a couple of directorial things, particularly the fight scene. I really dislike the fight scene. Why do a slow motion fight scene and just show really slow punches into someone's face and stuff?
Yeah, that was about the only thing design wise that I thought, okay, I don't know why didn't put me off the film. It's not like, oh, this is now bad, or oh, I hate this. I just thought, this is a weird choice.
It's a strange choice, considering it's rooted in, like, reality, kind of. You're meant to feel this gritty environment that they're in, and then they show this kind of joke fight scene. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Mitchell, you being an engineer by trade, you do lots of physics and stuff like that. When you've got to work out your equations, do you do it on your bathroom mirror as well, or do you just go pen and paper?
I copy them off the person next to me.
Yeah, I thought that was obviously incredibly stylistic choice, but completely ridiculous that he can afford writing on his mirrors and stuff. Must be the first time he's ever done it, because obviously there's no marks otherwise. instead of just getting pen and paper.
I mean, imagine how confused Minnie Driver's character is when she goes in the shower and, when it reveals, when the condensation comes on, she's like, what is that message?
The other thing that I was just sat there going, what is the sort of interpretation of the British therapist? Ballyhoo and shenanigans and words that British people, I don't think I've ever heard of ballyhoo before. It was just the most stereotypical caricature, up their own arse, posh British person. We all come from London or Cambridge or Oxford. The only three places that they could possibly have picked. So I didn't really like that bit, I thought. And another negative, it's the last negative I'll go into. It's just about Stellan Skarsgård's character, that he's a bit of a weirdo. Like, he hits on his students at the sort of anniversary party, and then whilst Will's seeing a therapist, I think the British therapist, he's outside hitting on another 19-year-old girl. Other than it's never really explored any further, which I appreciate it, because it probably is honest. I imagine there are lots of middle-aged college professors in America trying to get their end away with younger girls. So fair play for having it put in, but I don't know. I think I would have liked it to have went somewhere to sort of solidify that it's a bit of a dick move. The first one was really creepy. It's like, oh, no. Well, why don't you have a drink with me tonight? And we'll, she's your student, about 18, and you're 60. Is everyone okay with it?
I did notice it, and that was one of the things I was going to talk about in spoilers when I mentioned that for all he's not one of the main characters, it's a continuation of the same thing that they're looking at with Matt Damon's character, Robin Williams' character, and then they show a bit of professor's behavior to show that we're all
fallible.
Yeah, fallible, but it comes from a place of there's a particular scene that I'll talk about in a minute, which really shows his weakness and the fact that he needs this external validation, and some of it is he's partly motivated and believes himself to be great because of this the way the female students are treating him. But yeah, there's one particular scene where that all falls apart, and you see the weakness in him, which I was the same with you. I think when those scenes were happening, I was just thinking, this was produced by Harvey Weinstein. Is this?
I've got written down
just because he thought that was a good scene. Yeah. But actually, I do think it had a little bit of a purpose. Although if it had been omitted, I don't think you would have missed it. I think they could have done that. They could have done that in a different way. I don't think it was necessary.
Well, we'll talk about your scene after we've rated it. So we may as well jump into ratings now. Pointless holding on any longer. The people are in suspense to know whether we like this or not. Mitchell, what's your enjoyment score for this film?
As we say, I really enjoy it. I enjoy watching it again and again because there's no surprise. You're just watching a great film with great acting, great delivery of the script. I think so. I'm going to give it an 8.8.
I'm going to give this a 9.6 for enjoyment. I watch it every 18 months. I love it. I think it's some of the best writing ever put to paper and then delivered to screen. Robin Williams is one of my personal inspirations, and he is phenomenal in this film. I just watch scenes of him. I think the therapy scenes, the cat and mouse games that they play, is just, it's genius level writing. That we talked about this with Inglourious Bastards last week with regards to a character showing us opposed to telling us things. We aren't actually really told that much about Will. We are shown everything, and it's unbelievable. I don't think I really enjoy Matt Damon as an actor. I think he's fantastic. I don't think he's been in anything as good since this film. It just ticks so many boxes. So Going on to technical quality, Mitchell, what are you rating this?
Yeah, technical quality, a very different consideration than all the rest that we've done so far. But yeah, I think you've got to have it up there for the script, for the screenplay, for the acting. It doesn't do anything with regards to directing, with cinematography, with music, or anything like that. I just think it's a great, enjoyable story. So I'll give it a 7.8 for technical quality.
As I've just said, I'm going massive for yes, it doesn't do that much, but I found that great because when we watch some of the Kubrick things, sometimes I'm actually distracted thinking, what does he mean by this? And getting tangled in the web of auteurs left, right, and center. And this, I was just left to relax. I thought the cinematography was actually tremendous. I thought there was some amazing shots. The editing of Robin Williams' story when he's telling the baseball story and they're cutting to an above shot running around, I thought they did enough that was different without it being a complete distraction, which is the number one thing with editing. Second you realize editing is the second it's really bad generally. So I'm giving this a 9.4. The script writing is unbelievable. Obviously, we never get to see the actual scripts. So when we say, oh, the script's great, we've kind of got to go off what we think the script was and what was actually produced. What was produced is arguably the best writing of a film I've ever seen in terms of dialogue and showing, not telling. And if someone wants to tell me about a film, leave it down in the comments. And it's not about being the best film. I just mean in terms of how the dialogue is constructed and delivered is out of this world.
Well, I think, Dan, definitely you've given it great Will Hunting. Probably bet more on the good Will Hunting for me.
I think I've given a phenomenal Will Hunting.
Yeah. But we've obviously both enjoyed this film. So if anyone hasn't seen it, which I mean, I think is ridiculous. If you haven't seen this film before, yeah. I don't know what you're doing. Go see the film, watch it, and watch it over and over again, probably every year for the rest of your life. There you go. Right, that's ratings. Stick with us now for spoilers. Right, Dan, I'll start with, because I've already talked about it twice, but with regards to the professor, I think, for me, I'm just, thinking about the theme of you've got people who something has happened in their life, they're vulnerable, they're being held back by something that's happened, and you're looking for them to have some sort of revelation to then be guided towards achieving their potential or not having that monkey on the back anymore. So, it's found to be Will is, this life as an orphan and not being loved and doesn't want to get hurt again and someone to leave him. And Robin Williams' character, obviously his wife's died and he hasn't quite moved on from that. But you start to see all these character flaws in you start, and I think that for me, that's what's interesting about it. So the professor, you are initially introduced as he's some sort of hero. He's won this Fields Medal. He's a genius. And yes, as I said, it appears at first that he's trying to use that to get with these young girls in his class and stuff. But yeah, that's flipped on its head once he meets Will. And as I said, that there's the scene where Will presents him that maths proof, and then he starts to burn it, and the professor's clawing after it. He starts to turn into this like weak person, and you see that he's now, it's the revelation that now he knows Will exists and Will's smarter than him. He feels as if he's now like a failure, or he's half the man he used to be, and you see those character flaws, and it starts to make you think that all those things he was doing were all about trying to give himself some self-worth. So I think it's interesting that you've got it's all focused on the main two characters, but actually you do start to seek some of the same theme in other characters. It's not so much in Ben Affleck's character, but at the same time, you do get the kind of thing of, he knows his place and he's going to be on this construction site his whole life and that kind of thing. And you start to see, he's holding himself back. He's already decided he's got no potential and stuff like that. So yeah, I just think it's, when you watch it multiple times, you start to see little different things that you didn't quite pick up on the first time around. I think that's a great mark of the film.
The aspect that the two characters in particular learn from each other, but that Will, for all his genius, is inexperienced, and even things that he doesn't know, Ben Affleck's opinion on not staying around, that he needs to go, that he needs to outgrow his hometown, shows that obviously it's just not about what you know. This film really hammers home that that intelligence is fantastic, it's great, but it's about emotional connection. It's about what you feel and how you cope with your emotions, and that's what makes it so rewatchable, because these are feelings that we all have. And I think as well, as we get older, like, obviously the first time we would have seen this, I'm guessing we would have been teenagers, maybe. I'm sure this came out when I was about 10 or something. And I just feel like I relate to a different character every time and a different feeling. And, this is World Mental Health Month. I think it's a great opportunity to watch this film and seeing people talk and how people can be scared to talk. And wow, Robin Williams is seen at the park bench when they're watching the Swans is just something else. It's not just him, but Matt Damon's reaction to it as the character, the way that when you see him, in the directing, I'm not being funny. There are so many directors that could mess that up because they'd want to do so much. He does nothing except for play off one person speaking, and then as the realization hits, it's just until Will's the focus, and he uses that camera to show so much that as it spins round, this is Will slowly starting to contemplate what Sean is saying, and what Sean is saying is just a lesson to every person, and particularly young people. We've both been young, and every young person, and our parents when they were young, we all think we know everything, and we all think, oh, we've got it sorted. And Will's a genius, and yet there is so much that he hasn't experienced, and that's what life's about. It's about these experiences over what you know. What you were mentioning Minnie Driver's character earlier on. I loved that character, so I'm interested to see what you didn't quite like about it.
Yeah, well, there's two things with regards to development of relationships in this story that I just have a little bit of a drawback for me. And the first is with Minnie Driver's character, and it's hinted at a few times that she's asking about the family, she's asking where he lives, why won't you take me to the house and so. And I just don't. It's difficult to know over what passage of time this relationship's developing. But I just don't think it's believable that she would have let him get off the hook without answering all those questions, and like, oh, we've never been to your house. And also, she meets his friends once. He never appears to meet any of her friends, and suddenly they're in love with each other without him ever having to reveal anything about himself to her. Now, I mean, I don't know how he's managed to get through conversations with her without managing to say anything. So for all, I'm happy to be part of that and be taken on that journey. I just think she could have challenged him a bit more, and there could have been a little bit more that he had to do there. I think for me,
but I think there are different types of people, and I think as active as she is in her own life, she's actually quite a passive person with information, where she's really clever. And I think she knows if she presses too many buttons or pushes too hard, she's going to push someone like Will away. Love, you're right, I think is a bit of a bizarre term for their relationship, because if he wasn't a genius, I don't think should be going for him. And it's great that it's not the money. Like, she's very wealthy, very affluent, but she's not after him for any kind of fiscal reason. She's like, I don't care where you're from, which I think is a really lovely personality to have. But she has to be attracted to him for some reason. And it's not just, as he says, the bit of rough. It is his intelligence, and he's like the most intelligent man on the planet, essentially. And he looks like Ben Affleck. He's a good-looking lad. He's ripped.
Well, he looks like Matt Damon, but
Matt Damon, and he's all right looking, isn't he? So
I'm just saying,
get a career out of it.
I'm just saying because you said he looked like Ben Affleck.
Did I? Oh God, well, it's It's because it's like role models where the little black kid says that all white people look like Ben Affleck. That's why I've said it.
Sure,
So
we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
that's what it is. So everyone in it looks like Ben Affleck, especially Casey Affleck.
So the other relationship thing that I found just a little bit annoying, and again, this is because there was some unknown passage of time, but when the professor first kind of collects Matt Damon from prison, literally the next scene you see them in together, Matt Damon's doing his bit on the board, and then the professor's there, like ruffling his hair and putting his arm around him and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I'm thinking that relationship's got cozy quickly, hasn't it? But the director didn't even give us a montage.
I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, because when he does it, Matt Damon's like, "What are you doing to me?" And it just gives that very up your own arse interpretation of the professor, like his character. I think that was done on purpose, that he's like, now we're best mates and I'm wearing this scarf and I'm really cool, and they're like scratching everything off, and then he's like ruffling them up and his arms around him, and he's like, it's like when you're friends with a cool kid at school and it's like you think you can just, oh, well, that must mean I'm cool, and it's like, nah, you're still you, mate.
You must have known that was like that.
I was literally going to say that because I was friends with Darren Guttridge. So yeah, I'm speaking totally from personal experience here, as being the uncool kid. But that is what it's like. It's like, oh well, yeah, he's my best mate, and obviously I kind of felt sorry for his assistant.
Yeah,
get the coffee, or oh, you shut up, oh, not now, like.
But again, his character was interesting for exactly the same reasons, because he was actually, quiet, kind of came across a little bit strange, it was hinting at you that, oh, he's going to get jealous in a minute. But actually, he was the one person that was really sure of himself, and he was happy with, the position and the role he was finding himself in. Actually, he was offering words of wisdom to Will. So I think him in and himself was a bit strange, but a really good character.
Well, let's go into it. I don't think it's necessarily on purpose, but I think there is so much to do with positive masculinity for this film. We've talked about negative and toxic masculinity before. It's not something that I say doesn't exist or anything. It absolutely exists. But this is I just think it's so great. As you say, there is a quiet, self-confident character that doesn't feel, he's got to get into a dick measuring contest every time someone tells him to do something or he's put in his place or whatever. And he looks to build other people up. The professor that Will sort of proves his theory in 5 minutes that he's been working on for 3 years. He's like, he looks at him and goes, "You're a brilliant man. Mm-hmm. People can make mistakes, so other people can see things. You're wonderful." And in what that showed is like a really strong feminine trait within this man that was so positive. And he was a brilliant character, but going off into the other characters, we see how they talk to each other. Lots of swearing, it's lots of insults, there's games being played. They match each other's tones. When Will swears, Sean swears, things like that to build rapport. And ultimately, I think, again, particularly with mental health in men, and where so many men are afraid to speak, I think at the minute so many people are willing to listen, but there's still so many people that don't know how to talk. And I think this is a really positive way for men to talk, because we can put up a barrier, we can make a joke, and ultimately it can still be cathartic and someone can still listen. Not everything has to be done the same way. Not everything has to be a sit down and I feel this way. That there are other ways of communicating and there are other ways of listening. And it didn't hurt anyone. It wasn't, disrespectful to a bunch of people. It's just, there are some misogynistic jokes in there, but A, they're funny, and B, they're a joke. Like, it's not actually doing harm to other people, except for the professor's character, which we talked about earlier, which is more negative. And he really shows the negative masculinity side, where everything's about fame or achievement or having sex with young women, And that's something that I never got from this before. Again, usually it's the psychology of Will's abandonment. That's the crux of the story, and how he then teaches Sean to take a second chance after his wife's died and he's a bit depressed. But watching it again, I got so much out of this watch. It was ridiculous. I wasn't expecting it. I was even half wondering whether to watch it again or not.
In terms of the plot, there is that, for me, that's the one genius part of this plot is Robin Williams' character does 90% of the work to help Will understand his challenges, and that the only way he's going to realize his potential is if he leaves some of that behind. But actually, the real turning point is Ben Affleck, his best friend, having that kind of heart-to-heart with him and being serious with him. And that's a complete departure of how they've talked. And there's nothing in the film that actually kind of lets you feel that they ever really have a conversation that Ben Affleck characters knows what's going on with Will. Even, when he mentions about, how's Skylar, and he's like, oh, she's moved off to California. Obviously aren't talking about those things. And it's fantastic plot choice, as you mentioned about masculinity and exploring that, for him to reveal that he fully understands Will as a person, probably more than Will understands himself, and that he can tell him all those things at the end to convince him that he's more than he is, and he is going to be happy for him if he sorts his life out and achieves something. And because what they could have done is for him to just kind of realize that from the therapy, and it's a great choice.
We can all, and it's painted throughout the entire film, from Will's first interaction with Minnie Driver, for where it is the biggest slam dunk, like hitch slap, in terms of putting somebody down who is trying to put someone else down for their intelligence. So, and then obviously, how do you like them apples is just one of the great all-time lines and scenes. But we've got that. Then we've got Will trying to rip Sean apart because he's read so much, and then Sean's monologue to say, there's nothing I can't learn about you from not reading a book, unless you want to talk about you and the depths of you and what makes you. And like, I just find it incredibly emotional. The scene where Minnie Driver asks him to move to California, and he comes out. It is a bit gaslighty, because he's not told her that he's an orphan and that he was beaten. And she's like, "I'm so sorry." The acting from her there is out of this world, from both of them. And that scene always gets me, and I hate watching it, but it's so good. And I think that's a testament to how important and good it is that I genuinely find distress watching it. And the scene where Will breaks down to Sean in his arms, Sean in general, it's just, I feel so much for the characters, and that, like, I love going back to seeing that. I kind of see it as a little bit of a therapy session myself sometimes.
Were you happy with the end of the film? Did you want to see the rekindling of Will and Skylar?
Yeah, I thought that's the natural progression of the film, for him to. It's about taking responsibility. It's about being in control of your life, and it's about living up to your potential, whatever that potential may be. But ultimately, a fancy job and loads of money is not what Will's about. It's not what Will's ever aspired to be. What Will needs is a positive person in his life that can fill the void of his abandonment. That his arc is abandonment issues. It's pushing people away before they can get close. It's not about getting a fucking job. So it makes full narrative sense for his character arc that he accepts giving it a go in his relationship, which I thought was a great relationship. I thought it was a very real relationship. They have a first kiss with a burger in the mouth, and she's like one of the lads. Like, she's the ideal woman. Like, she's beautiful, she's funny, She's a laugh. She doesn't take herself serious. She's unbelievably intelligent. She's caring. She's empathetical. She's sympathetical. She's understanding. She's patient. She's impossible. She's impossible. Like, lads, lower your standards. Like, I don't think she exists.
So that was our review of Good Will Hunting. We both, so please do go out and watch it. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Absolute Scenes. We'll be back with you next time. Dan, what's number 86 on the list?
You could have asked me before we started recording.
I don't know. You'll have to wait until you'll have to wait until next time then. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment in the bottom. Let us know what you think on our scales of enjoyment and technical quality. You can also follow us on Twitter at scenes_YT, and we'll be there talking about our videos and what other films we like and dislike. So thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
See you next time.